A single mom delivery driver vented to the wrong person, not knowing he was the boss, and ended up winning his heart. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. Move out of the way, or the food's going to get cold, shouted Melina, rushing through the lobby like a rocket, carrying her thermal delivery bag on her back and her 5-year-old daughter, Alana, in her arms. She was running late, the clients were demanding, and missing this delivery could hurt her rating in the app. "Mommy, that man over there made a grumpy face," Alana whispered, pointing at a man in a suit who was frowning. "Don't mind him, honey. I bet his lunch is green pineapple with lemon. I'd make that face too." Alana giggled softly. When they reached the conference room, Melina pushed the door open with her hip. And there it was, a huge table, big screens lit up, executives analyzing charts. The air felt heavy with formality. The click of the door made everyone look at once, at the sweaty delivery girl, worn-out sneakers, lopsided backpack, and a 5-year-old on her hip. For a second, silence filled the room. "All right, VIP food is here," Melina announced, not even out of breath. "Who ordered the sad-looking salad?" "Oh, sorry, the fitness salad. Here you go. Stay strong with that diet, my friend." Some of the executives exchanged glances, trying not to laugh. She set the box on the table and kept going. "And here's the whole wheat chicken wrap. Who got this one, huh? Because let me tell you, that's just depressing." One executive woman raised her hand shyly. Melina gave her a playful wink. "You deserve applause, ma'am. That kind of courage isn't seen every day." A loud laugh came from the end of the table. The formal air started to fade. Even Alana waved at the people in suits, earning a few awkward hellos. In return, as Melina handed out each meal, she added funny remarks, as if it was completely normal to be among the corporate elite. Each line was a little performance. In the corner, Richard, the millionaire CEO, watched in silence. Tall, stiff posture, sharp gaze. He didn't laugh, but he didn't look away either. And when he noticed the logo on Melina's backpack, his interest grew. She worked for his company. "One of my delivery partners, and doing deliveries with her child in her arms," he thought. Melina shifted Alana on her hip, closed her backpack, and turned to leave. "Mission accomplished. If there's dessert left, just call me. No extra fee." She took a step toward the door, but a deep voice stopped her. "Wait a moment." She froze, staring at the man getting up from the far end of the table. She didn't know who he was, but she could tell from the way others looked at him that he was someone important. "Can I ask you something?" Richard said, walking closer. "Depends. If it's about tipping, I take cash, card, and even candy," Melina answered, making some of them chuckle. Richard stayed serious. "Why do you do deliveries while carrying your little girl?" Melina sighed, tired but still with a sense of humor. "Because babysitters charge like NASA engineers these days. All my money goes to rent and bills. What's left, which is almost nothing, I spend on what Alana needs." He frowned. "And her father?" Melina's smile faded for a moment, then returned a bit sarcastic. "Her dad? He ran out of the hospital and never came back. It's just me, her, and this backpack." An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Richard cleared his throat. "If you're struggling like that, maybe you should ask your boss for a raise. I'm sure, if he knew your situation, he'd want to help." Melina couldn't hold it. She burst out laughing. "That's a good one. My boss? That man must be so stingy he'd charge us for breathing if he could. No one's ever seen his face. I bet he doesn't even exist. Probably a hologram made up just to cut costs." Some executives nearly choked trying not to laugh. Others stayed quiet, unsure how to react. Richard, though, didn't say a word. He just kept watching her, as if trying to figure her out. Melina adjusted the backpack, pulled Alana closer, and headed toward the door. "Well, I've got to go now. If my next client asks for a refund, my life gets even harder." She waved and disappeared down the hall. Richard stood still, staring at the closed door. Her words echoed in his mind. Stingy, invisible, hologram. No one had ever spoken to him like that, especially not a delivery driver with a child in her arms. "Look up that delivery partner's profile," he finally said to his assistant. The man typed quickly on the computer and replied, "Name, Melina Evans, active partner in our delivery app. Rating, 5 stars on almost every delivery." Richard leaned back in his chair, intrigued. It wasn't common for someone to catch his attention so quickly. And for the first time in a long while, he found himself wanting to know more about the woman who had shown up like a whirlwind. The next morning, Richard arrived at the office earlier than usual. Sitting in his executive chair, he tapped his fingers on the mahogany desk as he replayed every word the delivery woman had said the day before. There was something about her that deeply intrigued him. "James, come in for a moment," he called to his main assistant. The middle-aged man appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand, ready for the next task list. "I need more information about one of our delivery workers, Melina Evans. I want everything. Her work history, reviews, peak delivery times." James frowned, surprised by his boss's unusual interest. "Is there a problem, Mr. Richard?" "No problem, just professional curiosity." While Richard buried himself in reports and spreadsheets, trying to understand more about his most entertaining employee, on the other side of town, Melina was already in full swing. "Hold on tight, sweetheart. It's going to be a busy day," she shouted, adjusting her thermal backpack and rushing to grab her first delivery. "Mommy, why are you running so much? Do the burgers have legs?" her daughter asked, clinging to her neck. "No, honey, but if I don't run, they'll get cold and turn into rocks, and no one likes rock-hard burgers." The first stop was a commercial building downtown. Melina ran up 3 flights of stairs out of breath until she reached a small accounting office. "Delivery for Johnson & Associates," she announced, knocking on the door. A bald, grumpy man opened it, glancing irritably at the clock. 45 minutes late, that's unacceptable." Melina took a deep breath, gave her best smile, and replied, "Sir, have you ever tried crossing the city with hot food and a 5-year-old? It's like juggling while riding a unicycle. But look," she opened her thermal bag, "your food's still warm. I even played classical music for it on the way to keep the mood up." The man tried to keep a stern face, but a smile crept onto his lips. "What music?" "Ode to Joy by Beethoven. Your lasagna seems much happier now." Alana waved at the man and said, "Mister, my mom sings terribly, but at least she tries." The accountant burst out laughing, his irritation forgotten. All right, I'll let it go this time. But next time, bring a full orchestra." "You got it. Violins next time," Melina shouted as she dashed down the stairs. The second delivery was even more of a challenge. A customer had ordered a special meal for an office on the 10th floor, but the elevator was out of order. "Mommy, we're going to climb all those stairs?" Alana asked, her eyes wide. "Yes, princess. Let's pretend we're mountain climbers on Mount Everest. You're my official climbing partner. What if the food freezes up there because it's so high? Then I'll make fire with 2 toothpicks and warm it back up." They climbed step by step, with Melina making up silly stories for each floor, turning the exhaustion into fun. When they finally reached the top, both were panting, but laughing. The customer, a young programmer, was impressed. "Wow, you climbed 10 floors? That deserves a big tip." "Thanks. Now I just have to go down without passing out. If you hear a weird noise, it might be me rolling down the stairs." Later, Melina was sitting on a park bench, sharing a sandwich with Alana, when her phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello? Melina Evans? This is Sarah from Easy Deliveries Management. You need to come to the company office today at 2 p.m. It's about an administrative matter." Melina's heart sank. "What kind of administrative matter?" "You'll be informed at the meeting, 25th floor, executive office." The call ended, leaving Melina staring at her phone with a panicked look. "Mommy, why did your face go white like a ghost?" Alana asked, taking a bite of the sandwich. "Because Mommy thinks she might have done something wrong at work." On the bus ride to the office, Melina couldn't sit still. She kept gesturing nervously, murmuring possible excuses and explanations. "Maybe it's just a normal meeting." "No, it's not. No one gets called to the executive office for normal stuff. What if they found out I complain about the invisible boss, or that I sometimes eat a fry or 2 from the orders when I'm starving?" An older man sitting beside her smiled at her anxiety. "Miss, looks like you're heading to an important interview." "Worse, I think I'm about to get fired." "And for what reason?" "I still don't know. Maybe it's because I've been calling my boss, whom I've never even met, invisible, and a hologram." The man burst out laughing. "Well, at least you were creative." "If I get through this, I swear I'll never complain about the ghost boss again. Actually, he could even be a real ghost, like the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future." but a nice ghost, the kind that gives raises and meal vouchers. Alana, sitting on her lap, added, "And who brings presents too?" "That's right, sweetheart, a generous ghost." The other people on the bus were already smiling, caught up in Melina's mix of nerves and humor. When they arrived at the Easy Delivery corporate building, Melina took a deep breath. It was an imposing glass tower that reflected the clouds in the sky. She had never been there before. "Alana, we're about to enter the fanciest building you've ever seen. Let's be on our best behavior, okay? Can I press all the buttons in the elevator?" "Not today, honey. Today, Mommy needs to make a good impression." They stepped into the elegant lobby, with marble floors and huge plants in the corners. Melina felt completely out of place in her simple clothes and worn sneakers, but she stood tall. In the elevator heading to the 25th floor, she rehearsed her words in her mind. "Sorry, Mr. Invisible Boss. I didn't know you were actually real. I promise I won't call you a hologram anymore. Actually, holograms are advanced technology, so really, it was kind of a compliment." "Mommy, you're talking to yourself again." Alana whispered, "I'm just nervous, sweetheart." The elevator stopped. The doors opened to reveal a luxurious hallway with thick carpet and expensive paintings on the walls. Melina walked up to the front desk, where an elegant secretary was waiting. "Melina Evans? That's me. And this is Alana, my official assistant." The secretary smiled at the child and pointed to an impressive door at the end. "You can go in. He's expecting you." Melina took Alana's hand, took 3 deep breaths, whispered a quick prayer mixed with a joke about ghost bosses, and pushed the door open. What she saw on the other side left her completely frozen. Behind a huge executive desk was Richard, the same man from the meeting the day before, the one who had asked questions about her life. There he was, serious, wearing a flawless suit, looking straight at her. Melina's knees felt weak, and her mouth went dry. Her brain tried to process what she was seeing. The man she had called stingy, and a hologram was sitting right there. He was her boss. And worse, she had said all those things directly to him. "Good afternoon, Melina," Richard said with a slight smile. Melina stayed frozen in the doorway for several eternal seconds, blinking rapidly like that might somehow change what she was seeing. Richard stayed seated, waiting for some kind of reaction, while Alana looked curiously at the well-dressed man behind the giant desk. You, sir," Melina stammered, finally trying to form a full sentence. "You're the ghost boss?" "Ghost?" Richard raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. "I mean, the boss, the real boss, the one Melina waved her hands, scrambling for the right words. "The one I said was stingy and a hologram and—" Her voice kept rising until it was almost a panicked shout. As she tried to step closer to the desk to explain, she tripped over her own foot and stumbled forward, nearly knocking over a decorative plant in the process. "Careful." Richard stood up quickly, but Melina had already recovered, though completely awkward. I'm fine. I just tripped over my own foot. Happens all the time. My feet are sneaky. They always betray me in important moments." Alana whispered to her mom. "Mommy, your face is red like a tomato." "I know, sweetie. Mommy's having an existential crisis." Richard motioned to the chair in front of his desk. "Please, have a seat and breathe." Melina approached the chair with exaggerated caution, like it might be a trap. When she tried to sit, she misjudged the distance and nearly slipped, grabbing the armrests at the last second. "There. Sat down without hurting myself. That's progress." Richard returned to his chair, clearly trying to hold back laughter as he watched this whole show of nervous clumsiness. "Melina, I need you to calm down so we can talk." "I'm calm. Totally calm. Zen-level calm," she answered, hands still shaking. "Sir, sorry, what's your name again? Because up until now, you were just the invisible boss in my head. Richard Thompson. And you can call me Richard." "Richard, that's a nice name. Classic. Nothing holographic about it." Melina let out a nervous laugh. "Look, Richard, I want to say I'm so sorry for everything I said yesterday. I swear on this beautiful child right here that I had no idea who you were. If I had known, I would have made up something like you being the best boss in the world, generous, kind, basically a corporate saint." "Corporate saint?" Richard couldn't help but smile. "Yes, Saint Richard, the patron saint of delivery workers, protects those who carry heavy backpacks and kids in their arms." Alana added sweetly, "Mommy always makes up weird saints when she's nervous." Richard finally laughed, a genuine laugh that echoed through the elegant office. Melina, want to know the truth? I really liked your honesty yesterday. It's been years since anyone spoke to me that. Honestly? Honestly? Melina blinked, confused. You liked being called stingy? I liked your honesty and your humor, even if it was unintentional. Melina took a deep breath, trying to process what she was hearing. So, I'm not getting fired because I was already planning to sell a kidney to pay this month's rent. Not only are you not getting fired, I actually have a proposal for you. A proposal? Like, leave the company and never come back? Just the opposite. Richard leaned forward. Do you know how to use a computer? Create documents, answer phones, organize schedules? Melina blinked, caught off guard by the sudden change in topic. I do. I worked for 3 years at a marketing company before Alana was born. I used to organize the lives of a bunch of disorganized people. I was actually good at it. Why did you leave? Because when I found out I was pregnant, I got really sick. I threw up even drinking water. My boss at the time wasn't exactly understanding. He said pregnant women in the office were a needless distraction. Richard's expression turned serious. What kind of person says something like that? The kind who thinks pregnancy is contagious. Melina shrugged. But it turned out to be a blessing. I found out I'm a great delivery person. I know every street in this city and can make customers laugh, even when they're annoyed. That's exactly why I want to make this proposal. Richard stood and walked to the window. I want you to be my personal assistant. The silence that followed was so deep, Melina could hear her own heartbeat. Personal assistant? She repeated slowly. That's right, you have energy, you're spontaneous, and clearly good with people. Plus, your past experience shows you've got the right technical skills. Melina looked at Alana, then at Richard, then back at Alana. But what about Alana? I can't leave her alone. I have no one to watch her. I thought about that too. Richard returned to his chair with a mysterious smile. I'm going to open a daycare center here at the company for employees with children. This time the silence lasted even longer. Melina opened and closed her mouth several times like a fish out of water. Daycare. Tier? Exactly. On the 10th floor, fully equipped with trained staff, toys, a rest area. Are you joking? Melina stood up suddenly. Because if this is a joke, it's not funny. I've been through too much to handle a cruel joke. Richard looked her straight in the eyes, his expression completely serious. I'm not joking, Melina. I mean it. But why? You don't even know me that well. I've been observing people for years. I can recognize potential when I see it. And yesterday, when I saw you turn a tense meeting room into a relaxed space, I realized you have something my company needs. Humanity. Alana tugged on her mom's shirt. Mommy, does that mean I get to play here every day? Melina looked at her daughter, then at Richard, trying to understand if she was dreaming or if her life really was changing in an instant. I accept, she said, more like a question than a statement. You accept, Richard confirmed. I accept. Melina almost shouted, then composed herself. I mean, I gladly accept, with professional responsibility, of course. Great. Richard reached out to shake her hand. You start tomorrow, 8 a.m. Melina shook his hand, still in shock. Tomorrow, as a secretary with daycare. That's right. Mr. Richard, if this is a dream, please don't wake me up before 8 tomorrow morning. Richard laughed again, realizing that this extraordinary woman was about to transform not just his work routine, but possibly much more than he imagined. The next morning, Melina showed up on the 25th floor right at 8 o'clock, wearing her best outfit, a light pink blouse, dark jeans, and comfortable flat shoes. Standing among the secretaries in their sharp suits and towering heels, she looked like a daisy in the middle of fancy orchids. Good morning, she greeted cheerfully, carrying a large, colorful bag. I'm the new secretary for Richard, Mr. Thompson. The other women looked her up and down, their expressions ranging from surprise to disapproval. Jennifer, the most senior secretary, whispered to the colleague beside her, That's the new secretary? Looks like she came for a picnic. Melina, overhearing the comment, responded naturally. Actually, I came to work. But if there's a picnic after hours, I've got plenty of sandwiches in my bag. Her unexpected reply made a few of the employees chuckle quietly, while others frowned disapprovingly. Sarah, from accounting, couldn't resist the sarcasm. Interesting. From delivery girl to executive secretary. That's quite a leap. It sure is, Melina agreed with a smile. Yesterday I was climbing 20 flights of stairs. Today, I take the elevator. That's what I call social progress. James, Mr. Thompson's main assistant, showed up to guide Melina through her new tasks. I'll show you your desk and explain the phone system. It's a little tricky at first. Perfect. I love a challenge. Once, I put together a crib using a manual in Chinese. Sure, it ended up upside down, but still, quite the experience. While James explained the phone system, which had dozens of buttons, Melina waved through the glass to Alana, who was in the daycare that had been quickly set up overnight on the 10th floor. Mom, can I explore the building? Alana shouted, her face pressed against the glass. Stay in daycare, sweetheart. Mommy's learning how to be a professional secretary. But Alana had other plans. 5 minutes after Melina settled at her new desk, the little girl had convinced the caregiver she needed to go to the bathroom and instead started exploring the hallways. The first phone call that came through was a real test. Mr. Thompson's office. This is Melina speaking, she answered, proud of how professional she sounded. I need to speak to Richard about the Phillips Industries contract, said a firm male voice. One moment, I'll transfer you to. Melina looked desperately at the button panel. Where exactly? She pressed a random button, and the call ended up in the company kitchen. Thompson Incorporation's kitchen speaking. How can I help you? Said the chef, confused. Oops. Melina quickly hung up and tried to call the client back. Sir? Hello? I think I just transferred you to the lunch menu. Silence on the other end. 10 minutes later, she was trying to organize Richard's schedule when the phone rang again. Mr. Thompson's office, she answered, this time more cautiously. This is David Miller, for the 10 o'clock meeting. Melina scrambled through the papers in front of her. 10 o'clock meeting. 10 o'clock meeting. Ah, got it. Are you the one about the company merger or the land acquisition? Merger. Perfect. Your meeting was moved to 11 o'clock in conference room B. But I'm pretty sure we scheduled it in room A. No, it says right here, room B. Melina looked again and realized she had been reading the paper upside down. Actually, let me just confirm. Meanwhile, Alana had found Richard's office and walked in without hesitation. Hi, Uncle Richard, she said, climbing into the chair in front of his desk. Richard looked up from his documents, surprised but clearly amused. Hi, Alana. Shouldn't you be in daycare? I should, but I thought you looked lonely and sad. Mommy always gets sad when she works alone. I wasn't sad. But you weren't smiling either. Mommy says when people don't smile, it's because they're keeping their joy in their pockets. Richard laughed, genuinely. And where did your mom learn all this wisdom? She makes it up. Mommy makes up lots of things. One time she said rain happens when the clouds cry with happiness. I believed her, until I found out she was lying. How did you find out? Because the next day she said rain was when angels take showers up in the sky. Then, I knew she doesn't know anything about rain. Richard was laughing out loud when Melina showed up at the door, out of breath and worried. Alana, I told you to stay in daycare. I'm so sorry, Richard. She snuck out and... The scene in front of her made her freeze. Richard, the serious and formal CEO, was sitting on the floor, playing with paper airplanes with her daughter. Look, Mom, Uncle Richard makes airplanes that really fly, Alana shouted, demonstrating one gliding perfectly across the room. I, he, you. Melina stammered, not sure how to react. Your daughter has a real talent for aerospace engineering, Richard said, standing and adjusting his suit. She even improved my original design. Richard, I'm truly sorry. I promise this won't happen again. Actually, it was a much-needed break. When was the last time you made paper airplanes? Alana tugged at her mother's shirt. Mom, Uncle Richard is nice. He doesn't yell or use big boring words like the other grown-ups. Melina bent down to her daughter's eye level. Sweetheart, you need to go back to daycare. Mommy's working. But I want to stay here. It's more fun. Alana? Melina used her firm mom voice, the one that meant the conversation was over. Richard stepped in gently. How about a deal? You go back to daycare now, and at lunchtime you come show me what you learned there? Alana's eyes lit up. Promise? Promise. After Alana skipped down the hallway, Melina turned to Richard. Thank you. You didn't have to. She reminded me why I got into business in the first place. In the beginning, everything was fun, like making paper airplanes. And now? Well, now I have a secretary who transfers VIP clients to the kitchen and a 5-year-old teaching me aerospace engineering. Milena blushed. About the phone, I'm still learning. Learn at your own pace. I prefer authenticity over robotic perfection. For the rest of the morning, Milena made small mistakes that led to hilarious situations. She mixed up Richard's calendar with the lunch menu, wrote a message in made-up Chinese, and filed documents in alphabetical order, based on the topic's last name. Some employees, like Jennifer, whispered constant complaints. She's completely unqualified to be here. Others, like Thomas from legal, began to appreciate her honesty. At least she doesn't pretend to be someone she's not. That afternoon, Richard quietly observed how Milena handled everything. Even when criticized, she stayed cheerful, turned tense moments into light ones, and slowly earned her place in the office, without changing who she was. At the end of the day, Milena walked over to Richard's desk. I survived the first day. Does that count as a win? It counts as a full-blown success. Great. Tomorrow I promise not to transfer anyone to the kitchen. Don't promise anything. Your spontaneity is exactly what this place needs. On Monday morning, Milena arrived at the office in her usual cheerful way, greeting everyone in the elevator and making Alana wave to the serious employees who tried and failed to hide their smiles. But the mood changed quickly as she reached her desk. Jennifer, the senior secretary, was waiting with a triumphant look and a report in her hands. Milena, we need to talk about a serious issue. Good morning to you too, Jennifer. What issue? The quarterly financial report you organized on Friday was sent to the board full of major mistakes. Swapped numbers, flipped graphs, completely incorrect data. Milena frowned, confused. But I didn't organize any financial report on Friday. I spent the whole day learning how to use the printer without jamming it. Sarah from accounting appeared, as if summoned by the drama. Of course you did. Your name is on the delivery label. My name? But I don't even know where the finance department is yet. Typical, Jennifer said, folding her arms. 'Cause the problem, then pretend you don't know anything. Because of you, the company almost lost an important client. Other employees began to gather, forming a small gossip circle around Milena's desk. She looked at all the accusing faces and took a deep breath. Okay, let's slow down. Can someone please explain exactly what happened? Because apparently, I committed a crime I don't even remember. Thomas from legal, who had grown to like Milena, stepped closer. The report was submitted with your name on the label, but the mistakes are very technical. It doesn't seem like the work of someone who's only been here a week. Thank you, Thomas. At least someone here uses logic. Milena turned to Jennifer. And can you explain how I could possibly write a financial report if I still don't even know how to access the system? Maybe you asked someone for help and messed it up anyway, Sarah insisted. Or maybe, said Milena with a sarcastic smile, someone's trying to pin this on me and forgot I have an alibi. On Friday, from 2 to 5 in the afternoon, I was in Richard's office helping him organize his calendar. He can confirm it. The awkward silence that followed was broken by Richard's deep voice. He had arrived without anyone noticing. I confirm it. Milena was with me the entire afternoon on Friday, and I'd like to know why my secretary is being accused without a proper investigation. Jennifer turned pale. Mr. Thompson, we were just trying to clear things up. Clarify things or create unnecessary drama? Richard looked at everyone in the group. I want this report properly investigated, and until we know who's really responsible, I won't tolerate any more baseless accusations. People quickly dispersed, murmuring to one another. Milena stayed behind, still processing what had just happened. Thank you, she said softly to Richard. Don't thank me. I just believe in fairness, and you defended yourself very well. I've learned that in life, if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. Richard looked at her differently, as if he was seeing a new side of her. You're not one to play the victim, are you? I don't have time for that. I've got a daughter to raise and bills to pay. Speaking of bills, the afternoon brought another challenge for Milena. When she got home with Alana, her landlord, Mr. Williams, was waiting at the apartment door. Milena, we need to talk. Hi, Mr. Williams. About what? About the 2 months of unpaid rent. Milena's stomach dropped. She knew this moment was coming. Mr. Williams, I just got a new job. I'm going to catch up, I promise. I've heard that promise before. I've got other people interested in this apartment who can pay on time. Alana, sensing the tension, tugged on her mother's skirt. Mommy, are we going to have to leave our home? Melina knelt down to her daughter's level, forcing a smile. Of course not, sweetheart. Mommy's just talking with Mr. Williams. He's worried because I'm such a good tenant. He's afraid I'll move to a nicer place. Mr. Williams didn't laugh at the joke. 2 weeks, Melina. If the rent's not paid by then, I'll have to ask you to leave. Understood. 2 weeks. After he left, Melina sat on the old couch and let out a deep sigh. Alana climbed onto her lap. Mommy, are you sad? A little bit, honey. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to have pasta with tomato sauce and pretend it's a fancy Italian feast. With a fancy waiter too? With a fancy waiter too. I'll put a towel over my arm and talk with a funny accent. Alana laughed, and Melina managed to hide the tears that were about to fall. On Tuesday, the mood at the office was tense. Rumors about the report were still spreading, and Melina felt suspicious eyes on her wherever she went. During lunch, she overheard pieces of conversations that were clearly about her. I don't trust her. She just showed up and now she's the CEO's secretary? There's got to be something shady going on. Poor company. They'll start losing clients because of her. Melina tried to stay focused on her work, but the pressure kept building. That afternoon, while organizing documents on her desk, her hands were slightly shaking. That's when Richard showed up. Melina, can you come to my office? She followed him, trying to guess whether this would be another accusation or if they had finally found the real culprit. Have a seat, he said, closing the door. If you're going to fire me, can I at least get a letter of recommendation? Something like, Melina worked here and didn't burn the building down. Richard laughed. I'm not firing you. Actually, I'd like to invite you to dinner. A dinner invitation? Yes. Tonight. Melina blinked a few times, confused. Dinner? Like a work dinner? Informal. Just a chance to talk outside this tense environment. Richard, won't that make the rumors about me even worse? People are already talking no matter what we do, and honestly, I don't care about office gossip. Melina hesitated. The whole situation felt strange, but at the same time, after the week she'd had, the idea of stepping away from that hostile environment was tempting. Is it strictly a business dinner? Just dinner, a civil conversation between colleagues. And where would it be? I know a quiet place, nothing fancy. Melina thought about all the reasons she should say no. The gossip, the class difference, the fact that this could complicate her job even more. But then she thought about the apartment, the bills, the pressure she was under, and the unexpected kindness of the invitation. All right, I'll go. Great. I'll pick you up at 7. No, that's not necessary. Just give me the address and I'll meet you there. It's safer for my already fragile reputation. Richard agreed, wrote down the address on a piece of paper, and handed it to her. When Melina left the office, she couldn't decide whether she'd just made the best or worst decision of the week. But one thing was certain. Her life was changing in ways she never could have imagined. Melina stood in front of the closet for 20 minutes, staring at her 3 fancy outfit options. A wrinkled party blouse, a skirt that had shrunk in the wash, and a black dress that looked more like morning attire. Mommy, why do you look like you just ate a lemon? Alana asked, sitting on the bed, swinging her legs. Because I don't have anything proper to wear to a fancy dinner, sweetheart. You could wear pajamas. They're more comfortable. Unfortunately, pajamas aren't the dress code for elegant restaurants. Melina sighed and knocked on her neighbor's door. Mrs. Helen, a 60-year-old lady with great taste in clothes. Helen, do you have a dress I could borrow for a kind of important dinner? Of course, dear. I have a navy blue one that would look lovely on you. The dress did look lovely, even though it was 2 sizes too big, making Melina look like a child wearing adult clothes. It's perfect, Helen lied. Just needs a little adjustment at the waist. She quickly pinned a few spots, turning the loose dress into something relatively presentable. Back at her apartment, Melina looked at herself in the mirror while Alana commented on her transformation. Mommy, you look like a princess who lost weight. Thanks for the honesty, sweetheart. And why are you painting your mouth red? Are you going to eat tomatoes? No, Alana, it's lipstick. Grown-up women wear it to look prettier. But you're already pretty. Why do you need to look more pretty? Because tonight, Mommy needs to look like she knows what she's doing. But don't you? Not even a little bit. Milena arrived at Le Bernardin restaurant 10 minutes late after circling the block 3 times trying to find the entrance. The place was way too fancy for her taste. Crystal chandeliers, tables with linen cloths, and waiters who looked like they belonged in fashion magazines. Richard was already waiting at a quiet corner table, wearing a casual but clearly expensive suit. When he saw her walking in, he stood up politely. "You made it." "I only got lost twice and almost walked into the wrong building. Other than that, it was smooth." She sat in the chair he pulled out for her, trying to look sophisticated and almost slipping in the process. "This place is impressive," she said, glancing around. "I bet the ketchup here has a French name." Richard laughed. "Probably, and it costs 3 times more than usual." The waiter approached with a professional smile and an accent Milena couldn't place. "Good evening. Would you like to see the wine list?" "I'd like a soda," Milena said. "Do you have Coca-Cola?" The waiter blinked, surprised, but kept his composure. "Certainly, madam. And could it be in a regular cup? These fancy glasses make me nervous." Richard stepped in gently. "Bring the Coca-Cola in the glass, please, and I'll have a red wine." When the waiter left, Milena sighed. "Sorry, I'm still learning fancy restaurant manners. I usually eat at places where you order at the counter and they yell your name when it's ready." "No need to apologize. I prefer honesty to pretending." The food arrived on huge plates with portions that looked like tiny works of art. Milena looked at the 5 different forks beside her plate. "Richard, can I ask a question without sounding completely clueless?" "Of course." "What are all these forks for? In case one breaks, do you have backups?" "Each one is for a different course. You start from the outside and work your way in." "Got it. Like a culinary puzzle." She picked up the wrong fork for the salad and realized it when she saw Richard using a different one. "I grabbed the wrong fork, didn't I?" "A little, but it's fine." "No, it matters. I bet there's a hidden camera filming everything for a show called Ordinary People in Fancy Restaurants." Richard laughed, a real, hearty laugh that echoed at the table. "If there were, you'd be the star of the episode." As the evening went on, the conversation flowed easily. Milena shared funny stories about her adventures as a delivery driver, and Richard found himself laughing in a way he hadn't in years. One time, Milena said, "I delivered food to a luxury building, and the doorman treated me like I was contagious. Then I found out it was his daughter's birthday, and she was crying because no one came to her party. I went up, sang a very off-key happy birthday, and shared my sandwich with her. The doorman cried more than the little girl." "Do you always do that? Help people you don't even know?" "It's not helping. It's being human. Alana taught me that. Kids don't see social differences, they just see people." Richard watched her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "How do you do it? Stay so positive through all the hard times?" "Who says it's easy? Some days I cry in the bathroom so Alana doesn't see. But crying doesn't pay bills, so I wipe my face and keep going." "And Alana's father? Did he ever try to reach out?" Milena's smile turned a bit sad. "He made it very clear he didn't want any responsibilities. Told me I had to choose between him and the baby. I chose the baby." "No regrets?" "Never. Alana's the best thing that's ever happened to me. She made me stronger, braver, and a lot more creative when it comes to inventing reasons why we can't afford pizza." Richard laughed again, but there was something different in his eyes. "You know, you make me laugh in a way I had forgotten existed." "What do you mean? A real laugh, not the polite kind from business meetings. A laugh because something is truly funny." The moment felt more personal. Milena's heart sped up when she noticed the way Richard was looking at her. "Richard, can I ask you something? Why did you invite me to dinner?" "Really?" He hesitated, swirling his wine. "Because ever since you came into my life, everything has felt brighter, more human." "Is that good or bad?" "It's scary and wonderful." Milena felt her cheeks warm. The conversation was heading in a direction she hadn't expected. "Richard." "You what?" "I don't know how to handle this. Our social gap feels like an ocean." "And what if I said I don't care about oceans? I'd say you don't know how to swim in dangerous waters." They looked at each other in silence, the tension between them growing. Richard reached across the table and gently touched her hand. "Milena?" That's when the flashes began. Subtle, from different angles, but clearly aimed at their table. "What was that?" Milena asked, startled. Richard looked around and his expression changed completely. "Paparazzi." "Paparazzi? What do you mean?" "Photographers. They must have recognized me." Milena felt panic rise inside her. "So that means that tomorrow our photo will be in the papers. Oh my goodness, this will ruin everything." Richard quietly called the waiter, paid the check quickly, and stood up. "Let's leave through the kitchen. I know the owner." They exited through the back of the restaurant, but the damage was done. The flashes had captured their private moment, his hand over hers, the expressions of two people clearly sharing something romantic. In the cab ride home, Milena stayed silent, trying to process what had just happened. "Milena, about what happened?" "Richard, I need time to think. This is all just too complicated." The next morning, Milena woke up to her phone ringing nonstop. Mrs. Helen was knocking on her door, sounding urgent. "Milena, you have to see this." She opened the door and found her neighbor holding up a newspaper. The headline screamed, "Millionaire CEO has dinner with mystery woman." The photo showed the two of them at the restaurant, clear, revealing. The scandal had broken. That morning, Milena walked into the office feeling like she was stepping into a gladiator arena. Every eye turned to her the moment the elevator doors opened, followed by whispers that buzzed like a swarm of bees. "There she is," Jennifer whispered to Sarah. "The mystery woman from the papers." "Mystery, nothing," Sarah replied. "Everyone knows she's just an opportunist." Milena took a deep breath and walked to her desk with her head held high, pretending not to hear the comments. "Good morning, everyone. Hope you all slept well," she said loudly, forcing a smile. "Some of us did," Jennifer said with sarcasm. "Others were busy making the news." "That's true. My first time being famous. I'm thinking about charging for autographs." Thomas from legal approached her quietly. "Milena, are you okay? My people are being harsh." "I'm fine, Thomas. Nothing I can't handle with a little extra coffee and a good sense of humor." In the break room, as she was getting water, Milena overheard a group of employees talking, not caring that she was nearby. "I bet she planned the whole thing. What a coincidence, showing up at his job and 2 weeks later dining in a fancy restaurant." Of course, women like that know exactly what they're doing. Poor Richard, he has no idea what mess he's gotten into. Milena turned to the group with a dry smile. "Ladies, if you truly think I'm that clever, maybe you should ask me for strategy tips, because so far my life has been more of a series of funny disasters than any kind of evil plan." "Aren't you ashamed?" one of them asked. "Ashamed of what?" "Having dinner? If eating at a nice place were a crime, half the city would be in jail." The day dragged on with Milena trying to act normal while feeling the weight of all the stares and whispers. Around noon, her desk was suddenly surrounded by reporters who had managed to get up to the executive floor. "Milena Evans? We're with Channel 7 News. Can you give us a comment about your relationship with Richard Thompson?" "My relationship? You make it sound like we're distant cousins fighting over an inheritance." "Is it true you're dating? Is it true you don't have anything more important to report on, like potholes or gas prices?" Security arrived quickly to escort the reporters out, but the damage was done. The entire office had witnessed the scene. That afternoon, Richard called a company-wide meeting in the auditorium. Milena didn't know whether she should attend or hide in the restroom until it was all over. "Are you going?" Thomas asked. "I don't think I have a choice. If he's going to fire me in public, I at least want to be there to defend my honor." In the packed auditorium, Richard stepped onto the stage with his usual CEO posture, but something in his expression looked different. He seemed determined. "Everyone, I've called this meeting to clear up the rumors spreading around the company. As many of you know, the press published photos of me having dinner with Milena Evans, my secretary." A wave of murmurs moved through the room. Milena shrank in her seat. "I want to make it clear that Milena is an outstanding employee, hired based on merit and qualifications. Our dinner was strictly professional, and I will not tolerate anyone treating her with disrespect." Jennifer whispered to Sarah, "He's defending her in public." Richard continued, Any employee caught spreading gossip or treating colleagues without respect will receive a formal warning. This company is built on professionalism, not on rumors. Melina felt both relieved and embarrassed. On one hand, Richard had stood up for her in front of everyone. On the other, she was now officially the employee the boss had to defend. After the meeting, she approached Richard. "Thank you for what you said in there, but I think that might have made things worse for me. Would you rather I let them spread lies about you? I'd rather you didn't have to justify yourself because of me. Melina, you didn't ask to be in this situation, and I won't let you take the blame for something you didn't do." 2 days later, as Melina was leaving the building at the end of the day, a man was waiting for her on the sidewalk. She recognized him instantly and felt her stomach drop. It was Derek, Alana's father. "Hey, Melina. Long time. Derek. What do you want?" He looked different. Too much hair gel, expensive clothes that didn't quite fit, and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Saw you in the papers. Looks like life's been treating you well. If you're here to cause trouble, you can leave. I have nothing to say to you." "Easy, easy. I just came to talk. I heard you're hanging out with some important people now. A millionaire CEO. Pretty impressive." Melina crossed her arms, suspicious. "Get to the point, Derek. Well, I thought maybe you could help me out. You know, I've hit some financial bumps. Are you seriously asking me for money?" "Not asking. Just proposing a deal. I mean, now that you've got access to wealthy folks, wouldn't it be fair to share a little?" Melina laughed, without amusement. "You've got nerve. You disappear for 5 years, leave your daughter behind, and now show up asking for money like I'm some kind of socialite? Look, Melina, how about this? You help me out with a reasonable amount, and I stay out of your life. Is that blackmail? It's business. Because, you see, I'm still Alana's father. Legally, I have rights." Melina felt her blood run cold. "What rights?" "Joint custody, for example. I could go to a judge and ask to revisit the situation. Especially now that your life is all over the media. Would a judge think it's healthy for a child to grow up in the middle of a scandal?" Melina felt the anger rising like a wave. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I would. Unless we come to a friendly agreement. Derek, you don't even know the color of your daughter's eyes. You don't know if she's allergic to anything, what her favorite food is, or if she's afraid of the dark. And now you show up pretending to care? What I do know is that she's my daughter. And now you have the means to make up for the years I lost. You didn't lose anything. You ran away. There's a big difference." Derek stepped closer, lowering his voice in a threatening tone. "Melina, I'm not playing around. You've got 1 week to think about my offer, or I'll start the process of getting my daughter back through the courts." "And you think any judge would give custody to a father who abandoned his child at birth? I think a judge might question if a mother caught in a media scandal is the best environment, especially if I show up looking like a remorseful father trying to make things right." Melina stared at him with a mix of disgust and determination. "Get out of my way, Derek. And if you try anything against my daughter, you'll find out exactly what a desperate mother is capable of." 1 week, Melina. Think about it." He walked away with that smug smile, leaving Melina shaking with anger and fear on the sidewalk. For the first time since everything began, she felt truly threatened. This wasn't just about office gossip or pictures in the papers anymore. Now, Derek had dragged Alana into the mess. And that was something Melina would never allow. Derek stood frozen on the sidewalk with that same irritating smile, while Melina tried to process the threat she had just heard. After 5 full years of complete absence, he now showed up acting like Father of the Year, wanting to make up for lost time. "You've got to be kidding me, Derek. Rights to Alana?" Melina crossed her arms, staring directly at him. The same man who said a baby wasn't part of his plan and ran out of the maternity ward. People change, Melina. They grow up. Oh, of course. And you just happened to grow up right after you saw my picture in the paper with a millionaire CEO. What a coincidence. Derek adjusted his expensive tie, one he clearly didn't know how to wear properly. "Look, let's not turn this into a street fight. I'm Alana's father. I have legal rights. And now that you're involved with wealthy people." "Involved?" Melina laughed loudly, catching the attention of people passing by. "Derek, you've got such a wild imagination. You should try writing soap operas." "Melina, be reasonable. You now have access to resources I never had. It's only fair to share some of that. Resources? Derek, do you really think I became some kind of high society lady because I had dinner with my boss? My apartment is the same, my paycheck hasn't changed, and the only thing different is that I'm famous for 5 minutes. Don't play naive. I saw how he defended you at the company. That's not how a boss normally treats an employee. And how would you know that? Derek gave a smug smile. I have my sources. It's not hard to dig up information when you're in the headlines. Milena felt a chill run down her spine. The idea of Derek snooping into her life made her stomach turn. Derek, I'm going to say this once. You have no rights over my daughter. You gave those up the moment you decided responsibility wasn't your thing. The court might see it differently, especially once they find out you've exposed a 5-year-old to media scandals. Scandal? Derek, I've spent 5 years supporting our daughter on my own. You know what a scandal is? A father who vanishes and then shows up asking for money. Richard, who had just walked out of the building, noticed the heated argument on the sidewalk. He recognized Milena right away, but didn't recognize the man speaking to her in such an aggressive way. He decided to approach quietly, concerned by the tone of the exchange. Milena, you're being dramatic, Derek continued. All I'm asking for is what's fair. Some form of compensation for the years I lost with my daughter. Compensation? Milena's voice rose. You want compensation for not changing dirty diapers? For not staying up all night when she was sick? For not rushing to the ER when she broke her arm? That's not the point. Oh, it is the point. You want to be paid for doing nothing. That's like asking for a paycheck from a job you never showed up for. Derek's irritation grew as Milena kept pushing back. Don't force me to take legal action, Milena. I can file for shared custody. Imagine that, Alana having to split her time between you and me, adjusting to a new routine, a new home. You wouldn't dare do that to her. I'd do whatever it takes to protect my rights as her father. From the bits of conversation he could hear, Richard was starting to piece things together. This man was clearly trying to pressure Milena, and she was standing her ground with an impressive amount of courage. Let me explain something to you about parental rights, Derek, Milena said, her tone cutting. Rights aren't something you automatically get just because your DNA matches. They're earned by being there, by caring, by protecting. The law doesn't see it that way. Well, the law also doesn't look kindly on fathers who disappear and show up 5 years later asking for money. I'm not asking. I'm negotiating. No, you're blackmailing, and you know it. Derek took a step closer, trying to intimidate her. You don't understand the position you're in, Milena. Your life has turned into a media circus. Do you really think a judge will see that as a stable environment for a child? You know what's not stable? A child growing up thinking her father is a ghost who might show up any time to cause trouble. Richard watched from a short distance, deeply impressed. Milena wasn't crying. She wasn't acting like a victim. She was simply standing her ground, with a strength he rarely saw even in boardrooms. 1 week, Milena, Derek said as he started to walk away. Think carefully about what's best for everyone. Derek, Milena called after him. You can think whatever you want, do whatever you want, but if you try to harm my daughter in any way, you'll learn that a desperate mother is far more dangerous than any high-priced lawyer. Derek stopped, turned around, and looked her in the eyes. Was that a threat? It was a promise. He shook his head and walked off, mumbling something about stubborn women and missed opportunities. Milena stood on the sidewalk, breathing heavily, trying to stop her hands from shaking. That's when she noticed Richard walking toward her. Milena? Are you okay? She turned around, surprised to see him there. Richard, I didn't know you were... How long have you been standing there? Long enough to see you were in a tough spot. Who was that man? Milena sighed, unsure how much she should say. Derek, Alana's father. Oh, Richard understood immediately. And he showed up now because he saw the pictures in the paper and thinks I became a millionaire overnight. He wants some kind of compensation for the years he didn't bother raising his daughter. That's ridiculous. That's Derek being Derek. He always shows up when he thinks he can take advantage of something. Richard looked at her with admiration. You stood up to him with real courage. I had no choice. When it comes to Alana, I turn into a lioness. Can I ask what he was threatening you with? Milena hesitated, then chose to be honest. Shared custody. He said he's going to use the media mess to prove I'm not a fit mother. That's absurd. You're an amazing mother. Thanks, but the legal system doesn't always see things the way they should. At that moment, Milena remembered Alana was still at the company daycare, waiting to go home. I need to go pick up Alana. She's probably wondering where I am. Of course, do you want me to? No, thanks. I need to handle this on my own, like always. Richard nodded, but there was something in his eyes Milena couldn't quite read. An hour later, at home, Milena was trying to keep things normal while making dinner. Alana was sitting at the table, coloring a picture and cheerfully talking about her day at daycare. Mommy, today Miss Lucy taught me how to make paper butterflies. Want to see? Of course, sweetheart. Show me after dinner. Alana kept coloring but suddenly looked up. Mommy, I saw you talking to a man on the street today. Who was he? Milena's stomach dropped. How did you see that, honey? From the daycare window. You were talking loud. Milena took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. He was someone I met a long time ago. He looked mad. Were you fighting? Not exactly fighting, just talking about grown-up things. Alana stopped coloring and looked straight at her mom. Mommy, is he my dad? The question hit Milena like a punch. She wasn't ready for this conversation. Why do you ask, Alana? Because all the kids at daycare have a dad, and I've never seen mine. And then that man shows up talking to you. I thought maybe. Alana didn't finish her sentence, but her big eyes were full of hope and curiosity. Sweetie, it's complicated. Does that mean I get a dad now? Like the other kids? Milena's heart ached. How could she explain to a 5-year-old that her father was a bad man who only showed up when he wanted something? Alana, you've always had a dad in your heart. Everyone who loves you and takes care of you, they're your family. But it's not the same, is it, Mommy? That honest question made Milena's eyes fill with tears. No, sweetheart, it's not the same. The next morning, Milena arrived at the office carrying not only her work bag, but also the weight of the conversation she'd had with Alana the night before. Her daughter's innocent question about having a dad again echoed in her mind like an off-key bell. She was sorting through documents when Richard showed up at her desk, holding a cup of coffee and wearing a concerned expression. Good morning, Milena. Did you sleep well? As well as someone can after spending the night thinking about problems that didn't exist yesterday, she replied, trying to sound light. Richard pulled up a chair and sat next to her desk, a gesture that drew attention from other employees. About yesterday, I couldn't stop thinking about what happened with that man. Derek. And you don't need to worry about that, Richard. It's my problem. Milena, I heard part of your conversation. He was clearly trying to blackmail you. She stopped typing and looked at him. How much did you hear? Enough to understand he's threatening to use our media situation against you in a custody fight. Milena sighed and turned her eyes back to the computer screen. Like I said, it's my problem. I've always handled my problems alone. But this time, you don't have to. What do you mean? Richard leaned in closer, lowering his voice. I have an excellent legal team. They could help you get ready in case Derek actually tries something. Milena's response came quickly and firmly. No. Milena, be reasonable. You're dealing with a man who clearly has no scruples and, Richard, stop. She turned fully toward him. I appreciate the offer, I really do. But I can't let you fix my life. It wouldn't be about fixing your life. It would just be making sure you have the tools you need to defend yourself. And how would that look? The poor delivery girl who needs her rich boss to pay for expensive lawyers to solve her personal problems? That's not how I see it. But it's how everyone else would see it. Richard, people already think I'm an opportunist here. If you start funding my legal issues, they'll say their suspicions were right. Richard looked at the determination on her face and felt a mix of frustration and admiration. You're the most proud person I've ever met. It's not pride, it's dignity. There's a difference. And if Derek really does file a lawsuit, are you going to face that on your own? If I have to, yes. It wouldn't be the first time I've faced something hard without help. The silence that followed was filled with the usual office sounds. Phones ringing, printers working, distant conversations. Richard watched her, clearly wrestling with his own emotions. "Milena, can I ask you a personal question?" "Depends how personal." "Why is it so hard for you to accept help?" She laughed, but without humor. "Because I learned that when you depend on someone, they always expect something in return. And I have nothing to give except my dignity." "And what if I said I don't want anything in return?" "I'd say everyone wants something. The trick is figuring out what." Richard stood from his chair, walked to the window, then came back. Milena could tell he was fighting an inner battle. "Milena, can I be completely honest with you? I'd rather honesty than empty kindness. The truth is, I'm not offering help just because it's the right thing to do." "Then why?" Richard looked straight at her. "Because I care about you, more than I should care about an employee." The air between them seemed heavier. Milena felt her heart start to race. "Richard, I know this complicates everything. I know our situation is already complicated enough. But ever since you came into my life, he paused, searching for the right words. "You remind me what it's like to feel something beyond business responsibilities." Milena stood from her chair, putting physical space between them, hoping it would help her clear her mind. "Richard, you're confusing things. I brought some lightness to your work environment. That doesn't mean—" "Yes, it does." He stepped closer. "It means you make me laugh. It means I wake up thinking about you. It means that when I saw that man threatening you yesterday, I felt a kind of anger I've never felt before. This is dangerous for both of us." "I know." They were very close now, and Milena could feel the intensity in his eyes. "Milena, Before she could fully process what was happening, Richard leaned in and kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, hesitant at first, but quickly grew more intense when she didn't pull away. When they finally separated, both were breathless. "I shouldn't have done that," Richard said. "No, you shouldn't." Milena touched her lips. "But I shouldn't have let you either." "So what now? Now we have a much bigger problem than office gossip." Richard ran a hand through his hair, clearly shaken. "Milena, I need you to know, I'm not playing games here. What I feel for you is real." "Richard, stop. You barely know me. We're from completely different worlds. And what if I said I don't care about the differences? I'd say you're being too romantic and not practical enough. And what if I said I'm willing to take the risk?" Milena looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. "I'd say you're crazy, and that maybe I'm going crazy too, because—" She hesitated. "Because what?" "Because I'm feeling something too, something I shouldn't be feeling." Richard smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him all day. "Then I'm not crazy alone." "No, but that doesn't fix our problems. In fact, it creates a few more. So what do we do then?" Milena looked around the office, noticing how a few employees were quietly watching them. "For now, this stays between us. I need to deal with the situation with Derek before I can think about anything else. And about my offer for legal help? It's still no, but thank you for caring." Milena: "Richard, please, let me handle this my way first. If I can't, maybe I'll reconsider your offer." He nodded in agreement, clearly not satisfied, but respecting her decision. In the following weeks, the staff started to notice subtle changes in Richard's behavior. Jennifer mentioned to Sarah during lunch, "Have you noticed the boss seems different?" "What do you mean?" "More human. Yesterday he actually stopped to talk to me about my project. He's never done that before. And I saw him laughing at a joke Thomas told during the meeting," added Sarah. Richard Thompson actually laughing at an employee's joke. "Do you think it has something to do with Milena?" "I'm sure of it. Ever since she got here, he's completely changed." Milena had noticed the changes too. Richard was smiling more, joining casual conversations, and even showing interest in the personal lives of employees he used to ignore. One afternoon, while she was organizing his schedule, Richard walked in with a serious look. "Milena, I need to talk to you about a business trip." "What kind of trip?" "To New York. Important meetings with investors. I'll be gone for a week." "Got it. Want me to set everything up for you?" "Actually, I want you to come with me." Milena nearly dropped the coffee cup she was holding. "What do you mean, come with you?" "As my assistant, I need someone I trust to help with the paperwork and organization. Richard, you have other employees with more experience I want you." The firmness in his voice surprised her. "What about Alana?" "She can come too. We'll make sure she's comfortable." Milena looked at him, trying to figure out the real reason behind the invitation. Richard, this isn't a good idea, with everything going on. That's exactly why it is a good idea. You get away from the pressure, have time to think, and I get the best assistant I could ask for during an important negotiation. And what if Derek finds out I left town with you? He might find out. You'll be working, not running away. Milena hesitated. The trip came with risks, but also offered a break from the growing weight of her daily problems. When would it be? Next week, Monday to Friday. I need to think. Milena, I need an answer by tomorrow. The flights have to be confirmed. She looked at him, seeing a mix of determination and vulnerability in his eyes. The invitation wasn't just about work, and they both knew it. Richard, if I accept, this can't be seen as what? As something more than work. It'll be strictly professional. You have my word. Milena knew she was lying to herself, pretending it would be only about work, but the thought of leaving Seattle, even just for a few days, was too tempting to pass up. All right, I'll go. Great, James will take care of all the details. When Richard left the room, Milena stood by the window, wondering if she had just made the wisest or the riskiest decision of her life. On Monday morning, Milena arrived at SeaTac Airport carrying a suitcase borrowed from Mrs. Helen and holding tightly to Alana's hand. The little girl looked around as if she'd just entered an amusement park. Mommy, this place is huge. Are you sure planes don't get lost in here? She asked, amazed by all the movement. Let's hope not, sweetie. Otherwise, we might end up in the North Pole by accident. Richard was waiting for them at the check-in counter, wearing a casual suit and holding a leather briefcase that probably cost more than Milena's monthly rent. Good morning, travelers. Ready for the New York adventure? As ready as someone who's never flown can be, Milena replied, nervously adjusting her bag strap. You've never flown? Richard looked genuinely surprised. My travel experience is limited to buses, subways, and if I'm lucky, a cab. Airplanes have always been something out of a movie for me. Alana tugged on Richard's pants. Uncle Richard, is it true we're going to fly through the clouds? It's true, Alana, and you'll see the city below look tiny like a map. What if we fall? We won't fall, Milena said quickly, before Richard could answer. Planes are safer than elevators, and you're not afraid of elevators, are you? No, but elevators don't fly. Good point, Richard said, laughing. Their first challenge came at airport security. Milena looked at the metal detector like it was a portal to another dimension. Do I have to take off my shoes? She asked the security officer. Yes, ma'am. And what if they smell really bad? Can I apologize in advance? The officer, a serious-looking middle-aged man, tried to keep a straight face. Ma'am, just place your shoes in the tray. Milena took off her worn sneakers and placed them on the conveyor belt, along with her bag and coat. As she walked through the detector, the alarm went off. Any metal on you? The officer asked. Metal? Let me see. Milena started patting herself down. Oh, it's the bra pin. It broke and I fixed it with a paperclip. Richard covered his face with his hands, but he was clearly amused. Alana asked loudly, Mommy, why are you talking about your bra with the man? After solving the improvised metal situation, they finally made it to the boarding gate. Milena stood by the window, looking at the airplane like it was some kind of mechanical dinosaur. It's bigger than I expected, she said, and safer too, Richard added. I hope so, because if this thing goes down, I want it on my obituary that I died doing something original. During boarding, Milena studied each safety instruction carefully, as if she had a test coming. Richard, if the plane crashes into the ocean, how far would we have to swim? Milena, the plane is not going to crash. But what if it does? My swimming skills are limited to not sinking in a 4-foot pool. Then I guess I'll have to save both of you, he said, helping Alana into the window seat. Takeoff was a whole experience. Milena gripped the armrest so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Is it normal to make that noise? She yelled over the roar of the engines. Completely normal, Richard replied, amused by her reaction. And is it also normal to feel like your stomach just dropped to your knees? That too is normal. Once the plane leveled out, Milena finally relaxed and looked out the window. Wow, the houses down there look like little doll houses. Mom, look, the clouds are right next to us. Alana shouted, her face pressed to the glass. Yep, sweetheart, We're officially higher than the clouds. That makes us meteorologically superior. A flight attendant came by offering drinks. Would you like something to drink? Do you have anything for fear of heights? Milena asked. We have water, soda, juice. Water's fine. And can it come in a tightly sealed bottle? Just in case the plane makes any sharp turns. Richard ordered coffee and watched Milena with fascination. She had a way of turning every new moment into a small comedy. At lunch, Milena examined the food tray like a scientist studying a new species. Richard, is this chicken or something that used to be chicken in another life? I believe it's chicken. And this pasta looks like someone soaked noodles in outer space for a while. Airline food isn't exactly known for its culinary excellence. Got it, so it's more of a sociological experiment than a gourmet experience. Alana, who was eating with enthusiasm, chimed in. I like it, Mommy. Tastes like school lunch, only more expensive. Excellent review, sweetheart. You've got a future as a food critic. When they landed in New York, Milena stepped off the plane like she had just conquered Everest. We survived. That deserves a celebration. With what? Richard asked. With real New York pizza. I want to see if it's actually better than Seattle's. The hotel they were staying at was far too fancy for Milena's taste. The lobby had chandeliers that looked like works of art and staff who treated guests like royalty. Richard, are you sure they're not going to charge me just for breathing in here? She whispered while they waited at the front desk. Relax. It's all taken care of. And if I break something? I bet those flowers over there cost more than my monthly salary. Her and Alana's room was right next to Richard's and had an amazing view of the city. Alana ran straight to the window. Mom, from here it looks like we're in a toy city. Yep, sweetheart. A very expensive toy city. At their first business meeting, held in a fancy Manhattan restaurant, Milena felt like a fish out of water. The businessmen spoke with refined accents and used terms she could barely follow. Richard introduced her as his executive assistant, and she nodded politely, trying to look professional while mentally translating everything into plain human language. The tension rose when one of the investors, an arrogant man named William Patterson, began questioning Richard's recent decisions. Thompson, your personnel choices have been questionable lately, especially considering the media scandals. Milena felt her blood boil, but she kept her cool. Richard replied calmly, My team is selected based on competence, Patterson. Results speak for themselves. Results? Your company made the tabloids over inappropriate relationships. That's when Milena couldn't stay quiet any longer. Excuse me, Mr. Patterson, she said, standing up and catching the attention of the whole table. May I ask you a question? The man looked at her, surprised. What does someone's personal life have to do with their professional competence? What do you mean? Are you married? Yes. Has your wife ever negatively affected your business? That's irrelevant. Actually, it's very relevant. You're implying that Richard is less capable because he was photographed having dinner with me. That suggests women are inherently harmful to men's careers. Patterson shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable. That's not what I said. That's exactly what you said. And you know what? Richard Thompson is the most ethical professional I've ever met. He hired me based on merit, stood up for me when it mattered, and never blurred the lines between personal and professional. If you have a problem with that, maybe the problem isn't him. The silence around the table was deafening. Then, slowly, one of the other investors began to applaud. Soon, others joined in, until the whole table was clapping. Bravo, said a female executive. It was about time someone said that. Patterson left the meeting clearly embarrassed, and Richard looked at Milena with a mix of pride and surprise. Where did you learn to speak like that? He asked once they were alone. In real life, where people can't hide behind titles and money to treat others poorly. You were amazing. I was just being myself, and apparently that even works in fancy boardrooms. That evening, over a quiet dinner at a small Italian restaurant in Soho, the tension from the day shifted into something more intense. Milena, do you realize how much you've changed my life? Richard asked, gently swirling the wine in his glass. Changed how? Before you, I was just an efficient businessman. Now I feel things. I laugh for real. I care about people beyond numbers and profit. Richard. No, let me finish. Today, seeing you defend my work like that, I realized something. What? I don't want to keep pretending you're just my secretary. Milena's heart skipped a beat. Then what do you want me to be? Richard leaned across the table and took her hand. I want you to be the person who makes me laugh, who challenges me, who makes me want to be better. That sounds a lot like a girlfriend. Maybe it is. They looked at each other in silence, the air between them thick with emotion. Slowly, Richard stood, came around the table, and leaned down to kiss her. This kiss was different, more urgent, more certain. Millena melted into the moment, forgetting every reason why this was complicated. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. Millena, Richard's phone rang loudly, breaking the magic. He looked at the screen and frowned. It's James. He wouldn't call at this hour unless it was urgent. Take it. James? What's going on? Millena watched as Richard's expression changed drastically during the call. What do you mean sabotage? When did this start? He motioned to Millena that it was serious. No, don't do anything until I get there. Cancel all tomorrow's meetings. We're heading back tonight. When he hung up, his face was tense. What happened? Millena asked. Someone's sabotaging the company from the inside. Canceled contracts, lost clients, sensitive information leaked to competitors. My God, what do? We go back to Seattle. Now. The rush to the airport was tense. Richard made call after call trying to manage the damage, while Millena quickly arranged to change their flights. On the plane, Alana slept in her mother's lap while Richard worked non-stop on his laptop. Is there anything I can do to help? Millena offered. Yes, stay by my side through all of this. I'm going to need someone I trust completely. Always. Richard looked at her, and in that moment they both understood. They were no longer just boss and employee. They were partners, facing a crisis together. Millena? Yes? Thank you for being here, for being you. Where else would I be? We're in this together now. Richard realized that for the first time in his life, he wasn't facing a crisis alone, and that changed everything. The flight back to Seattle felt endless. Richard spent most of the time on the phone, trying to control a situation that seemed to spiral further out of control by the minute. When they finally landed at 5 a.m, Millena had never seen such tension on his face. James is picking us up at the airport, Richard said, carrying a sleeping Alana in his arms. We're heading straight to the office. Richard, it's 5 a.m. Maybe it would be better to wait until... I can't wait. Every hour that passes, more damage is done. In the car, James updated them on the situation. Millena listened quietly, organizing the information in her mind. 3 major contracts were canceled overnight, James reported. The clients claim they received damaging information about our company. What kind of information? Richard asked. Fake financial data, fabricated quality reports, even rumors about legal issues that don't exist. And how did they get access to this information to manipulate it? That's the million-dollar question. Millena, who had stayed silent until then, finally spoke up. James, who had access to the systems where that information is stored. Only upper-level staff, managers, directors, administrative personnel. And who, specifically, had recent access to documents that could have been altered? James checked his notes. Well, last week there was a meeting about restructuring. Jennifer organized all the documents, Sarah made the copies, Michael from finance prepared the reports. Millena and Richard exchanged glances. Jennifer and Sarah, Millena murmured. The same ones who've been treating me like public enemy number 1 since I got here. You think they'd do something like this? Richard asked. I think desperate people do desperate things, and they've clearly been bothered by me being here. When they arrived at the office, the atmosphere was tense. Employees whispered in small groups, clearly concerned about the rumors going around. Richard called an emergency meeting with all the managers and directors. Millena stayed in the next room, officially organizing files, but really watching everyone's reactions through the glass door. We need to find out how confidential information got out of the company, Richard said, his voice echoing in the conference room. Millena noticed Jennifer shifting uncomfortably in her seat when Richard mentioned the compromised documents. Sarah, on the other hand, avoided making eye contact with him altogether. After the meeting, Millena approached Richard. I have an idea, but you're going to think it's crazy. At this point, I'll take any idea. Let's bait them. Create a fake piece of information, something that looks important and confidential. Let them have access to it and see what happens. That's risky. Less risky than letting them keep sabotaging the company. Richard considered the plan. What kind of fake information? Something they'd find irresistible to use against you. How about a supposed plan to promote me to director? Richard laughed for the first time in days. That would really drive them mad. Exactly. And if the information leaks, we'll know who's behind it. They put together a fake document about a confidential restructuring, which included Milena's promotion to an executive position. Richard left the document accidentally on his desk, where Jennifer would see it during one of her routine visits. It didn't take long. The next morning, James received a call from a major client asking about the radical changes in the company structure and wondering if it was wise to keep doing business with an organization that promotes unqualified employees to key roles. It worked, James told Richard. Someone leaked the fake information. Now we need solid proof. Milena had another idea. Richard, do you have security cameras in your office? I do. Then let's check the footage from the last few days. I bet we'll catch someone taking pictures of the documents on your desk. They spent the afternoon reviewing hours of footage until they found what they were looking for. Jennifer entering Richard's office during lunch when he wasn't there and photographing documents with her phone. We've got our first saboteur, Richard said, pausing the video. Now we need to connect her to Sarah and figure out how they're getting the information out. The answer came when Thomas from legal approached Milena at the end of the day. Milena, can I speak with you privately? Of course, Thomas. I didn't want to get involved, but I think you deserve to know. Yesterday I overheard Jennifer and Sarah talking about speeding things up to get rid of you. Speeding up how? They mentioned something about a contact in the press who's willing to publish negative stories about you and Richard in exchange for internal company info. Milena's blood boiled. They're selling company information to reporters? That's what it sounded like. Milena rushed to Richard's office. I figured out how they're doing it. It's not just internal sabotage, they're selling information to the press. Richard immediately called his attorney and the company's security team. Within 2 hours, Jennifer and Sarah were being escorted out of the building under suspicion of corporate espionage and leaking confidential information. How did you find out? Jennifer asked, trying to stay composed. Let's just say you underestimated the intelligence of the people you looked down on, Milena replied. With the saboteurs removed and the evidence turned over to the authorities, the crisis began to settle. Clients were contacted, the false information was cleared up, and little by little, trust in the company was restored. That evening, when they were finally alone in the office, Richard turned to Milena. I don't know how to thank you for what you did. You don't need to thank me. I did what anyone would have done. No, Milena, you did much more than that. You saved my company. You saved the work of a lifetime. Richard, let me finish. Through this whole crisis, I realized something. I don't want to keep pretending you're just my employee. Milena's heart started racing. And what do you want me to be? Richard stepped closer and took her hands. I want you to be my girlfriend, officially. I want to stop hiding how I feel about you. Milena felt like the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Richard, I know we're different. I know our situation is complicated. But I also know I love you, Milena. I love you in a way I never thought was possible. The words echoed through the silent office. Milena looked at the man who had completely changed her life and felt a mix of joy and fear. You love me? I do. Completely. And I want to build something real with you. Milena stepped back slightly, needing space to think. Richard, it's a lot. You're you and I'm me. Our worlds couldn't be more different. And what if I said I don't care about different worlds? I'd say you're being too romantic. In real life, those differences matter. Milena, look at what we just did together. We saved an entire company by working as a team. If we can do that, we can overcome any social difference. She looked into his eyes and saw nothing but sincerity. Richard, I need time to think. How much time? I don't know. This is all so new, so overwhelming. You're asking me to believe in a fairy tale. I'm asking you to believe in us. Tears welled up in Melina's eyes. And what if it doesn't work? What if we find out we're not compatible in real life? And what if it does? What if we find out we're perfect for each other? She smiled through her tears. Do you always answer questions with more questions? Only when I'm trying to convince the woman I love to give me a chance. Melina took a deep breath. Richard, I need time. I need to think this through carefully, about Alana, about how this would affect our lives. I understand. How much time do you need? A few days. Maybe a week. I can wait a week. I can wait however long you need. He leaned in and gently kissed her forehead. Just promise me one thing, that you'll seriously consider it. Don't let fear make the decision for you. I promise. When Melina left the office that night, her head was spinning. The most incredible man she'd ever met had just told her he loved her and wanted a real relationship. Now she just had to decide if she was brave enough to believe that fairy tales could actually come true. The next morning, Melina arrived at work, still trying to process Richard's declaration of love. She had spent the whole night talking to herself, weighing the pros and cons, always reaching the same conclusion. She was in love with a man who seemed too good to be true. "Mommy, why were you up all night talking to yourself?" Alana asked on the way to the office. "I wasn't talking to myself, sweetie. I was organizing my thoughts." "Out loud?" "It's more efficient that way." Richard greeted her as usual, but his eyes carried a quiet, anxious hope. They stayed professional throughout the morning, until James walked into the office with a concerned look. "Richard, there's a man downstairs asking to speak with Melina. He says it's urgent." Melina's stomach dropped. She knew exactly who it was. "Derek," she murmured. "Do you want me to ask security to remove him?" Richard offered. "No, let me go down and deal with this once and for all. I'm going with you." "Richard, that's not necessary. I am going. You're not facing that man alone again." They went down to the lobby, where Derek stood with his usual arrogance, now wearing a poorly fitted suit that he clearly rented for the occasion. "Melina, good to see you. And this must be the famous Richard Thompson." Richard stepped slightly in front of Melina, a protective gesture. "Sir?" "Derek Mitchell, father of her child. I've come to claim what's rightfully mine." "And what would that be?" Richard asked, keeping his tone calm but firm. "My daughter, for starters, and fair compensation for the years I lost because of Melina's stubbornness." "Derek, we've talked about this," Melina said. "You have no rights over Alana. I do now, and now that you two are some rich and famous couple, you can afford to pay me for the years of child support I missed." Richard stepped forward. "Mr. Mitchell, I think there's a misunderstanding. First, you're not the victim here. Second, blackmail is a crime." "Blackmail? I'm not blackmailing anyone. I'm exercising my parental rights." "Rights you gave up when you walked away from your daughter," Melina replied. "That was a mistake from the past. I'm here now to make it right." Richard took his phone out of his pocket. "James, could you ask our lawyer to come up here and call security too?" Derek suddenly looked nervous. "There's no need to involve lawyers. We're all civilized adults." "Civilized adults don't abandon their children and come back 5 years later asking for money," said Melina. 10 minutes later, the lobby was crowded. Richard's lawyer, 2 security guards, and James with a folder full of documents. "Mr. Mitchell," said the lawyer, a serious man named David Harrison, "I have some interesting documents here about you." Derek turned pale. "What documents?" "A full investigation into your background, including the fact that you signed away your parental rights 5 years ago." That doesn't count. I was under pressure." "It absolutely counts," Harrison continued. "We also have evidence of your attempts to extort Miss Evans. That, Mr. Mitchell, is a federal crime." "You can't prove anything." Richard gave a cold smile. "Actually, we can. We recorded our conversation yesterday." Derek looked around, realizing he was trapped. "Look, you're blowing this out of proportion. You wanted to extort a single mother using a child as leverage," Melina finished. "You're disgusting, Derek." Harrison opened the folder and pulled out some papers. "Mr. Mitchell, you are now formally notified that any attempt to approach Miss Evans or her daughter will result in immediate arrest. You're also being sued for attempted extortion and harassment." "You can't do this." "We already did," said Richard. "And if you try anything against them again, I promise I'll use every resource available to make sure you spend a very long time in prison." Derek was escorted out of the building by security, yelling empty threats no one paid attention to. Once they were finally alone in the elevator heading back to the office, Milena turned to Richard. "Thank you. For everything. No need to thank me. No one messes with the two of you while I'm around." "Richard?" "Yes? I've made up my mind. About your proposal." The elevator stopped on the 25th floor, but neither of them moved. "And what's your decision?" "I accept. I'll date you. I'm willing to try building something together." The smile that spread across Richard's face lit up the whole elevator. "Really? Really? You've shown me you're a good man, Richard. And I love you too." He kissed her right there in the elevator, like it was the very first time. 3 months later, during an especially dull board meeting, Richard surprised everyone in the room. "Before we wrap up," he said, standing, "I have an important announcement to make." The executives all looked at him, curious. "As you know, my life changed drastically since I met Milena Evans. She brought kindness, joy, and love into my life." Milena, who had been taking notes, looked up, confused. "Richard, what are you doing?" "I'm doing something I should have done a long time ago." To everyone's shock, Richard got down on one knee beside Milena's chair and took a small box from his pocket. "Milena Evans, will you marry me?" The room fell completely silent. Milena looked at the ring, then at Richard, then at the stunned executives around the table. "You're proposing to me in the middle of a board meeting?" "I am, with witnesses, so everyone knows I mean it." "Richard, this is completely crazy." "It is. So, will you say yes?" Milena started laughing, her warm, contagious laugh everyone had come to love. "Of course I'll say yes, you crazy man." The room erupted in applause as Richard slid the ring onto her finger. "Now we can end the meeting," he said, kissing his fiancée. The wedding happened 2 months later, in a ceremony that blended elegance with simplicity. Guests included company employees, Milena's neighbors, Alana's daycare friends, and even a few former delivery customers. Mrs. Helen cried through the entire ceremony. Thomas gave a heartfelt speech about how Milena had brought humanity to the workplace. James organized every detail with military precision. But the most emotional moment came when Alana, dressed as the flower girl, asked during the ceremony, "Does this mean Richard is really going to be my daddy now?" "If you want that, princess," he replied, kneeling to her level. "I do. Can I call you daddy?" "It would be an honor." There wasn't a dry eye in the church. At the reception, as Milena danced with Richard and Alana between them, she still couldn't believe how much her life had changed. "You know what's funny?" she said. "What?" "I went out to deliver a meal and ended up delivering my heart." "That was awful," Richard laughed. "I know, but you'll have to put up with bad jokes for the rest of your life." "For the rest of my life? Promise?" "I promise." Alana, dancing between the two of them, shouted, "Now we're a real family, and I love you both." And the three of them hugged in the middle of the dance floor. And in that moment, they truly were. A family built on laughter, love, resilience, and a few deliveries that changed everything. What did you think of Milena and Richard's story? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to catch all our stories. And don't forget to check out more emotional stories right here on The Final